Hey, Scott, Sambucci here. Listen, over the last couple of weeks this year, going into 2019, one of the main topics that I've been really focusing on with our clients and what I've been talking about more broadly is people, process, and performance. And I want to take a couple minutes here just to talk through why those are really, really important, and that will help you to understand specifically why I'm running a live one-day workshop in February just to focus on these three areas of your startup. So, like always, I like to kind of draw things out and give you a model and a mental model so that you can understand in context where people, process, and performance sit and why they're so important for you and your startup. Okay, so many of you might have seen a model that I've drawn a couple times where we think about the phases of a startup and kind of the growth over time. And there's really three main stages of a startup, right? There's the true startup stage, there's what we call the ramp up stage, and then there's the scale up stage. And if we think about the growth curve over time, right, it looks something like this. And that growth curve, I like to think of it as what's called idea to impact, right? You started your company with an idea, you started your company with a vision, you had a problem that you wanted to solve, so much so that you probably left a pretty cushy day job or another opportunity in order to go focus and make this your life's work, right? Just an idea. And over time, as your startup is growing, as it's expanding, you go through these different phases with the hopes and the dreams of making the impact that you want to make in your marketplace. And so in each of these three phases, there are a different set of challenges that you're faced with in each of these three areas, right? So in the startup phase is really, really simple. First thing we're trying to do is get what we call problem product fit. A lot of people talk about product market fit, which is great. You got to get to product market fit. First, you got to get problem product fit. So you've got the problem that you want to solve in your marketplace, and you've got to figure out how do you build your product to solve that problem. So that's the very first place to go. The second place is then identifying those first few customers that are going to be buying from you. And the third thing we're trying to do is just get some revenue in the door, right? Just to prove that there's a business here. It's not just, hey, this is a product that people want to use. This is a product that people are willing to pay for because they see the value. They see that you're solving that problem. And that's really the startup phase, right? So this is all about validation of the business. We got a problem, we got a product, people want to give us money for it, right? Then we get into the ramp up phase. And that's where things change a little bit, because typically in the startup phase, while we're just trying to get those first couple of dollars, or trying to get whatever 10K MRR, 50K MRR, maybe just 50K in general, right? In the ramp up phase, the goal here is usually what we're trying to do is get to $1 million ARR, right? And it's mostly because, like most startups, you want to hit that threshold because that's what most venture capitalists, most investors tell you is what you need for a proper Series A, right? So the first rounds of revenue, you can get angel funding, seed funding, maybe even a relatively large seed round if you've got some repeatable revenue coming in. But to truly get the massive amount of capital that you need to get to the scale phase, which we'll get to in just a moment, you've got to get to $1 million or $2 million in annual recurring revenue. So in this ramp up phase, you've got a different set of challenges, right? So first it was problem product fit, second is finding your first customers, and third is just generating some kind of revenue, right? In the second phase, this is all about, first of all, prospecting. How do I get a repeatable system for leads, whether that's on LinkedIn, conferences, outbound, inbound, white papers, webinars, speaking at conferences, referral partners, whatever it takes to get leads into the top of your sales funnel, right? So this is all about prospecting. The second is then filling up your sales pipeline so that it's not just, hey, I'm working one deal and bringing it through from beginning to end, and then finding another deal and bringing it through from beginning to end. When you have repeatability in your lead gen, that means you should start stacking up your pipeline, your sales pipeline. So you've got different deals in different stages, and then every month, some of those should be converting. And that leads us to the third piece, which is then growing your revenue from just a little bit to something that actually makes it feel like a real business. And this is all about getting your paying customers, and then starting to build out your customer success strategy or account management strategy, starting to make sure that those early customers are the ones that you want to keep for a really long time and then grow over time, right? So that's the ramp up phase. What we're trying to do here is just get, in the startup phase, it's about validation. In the ramp up phase, what we're trying to do is get some repeatability. Right? Repeatability. Right? So validation, or even you think of it as viability, the second phase is all about repeatability. And once we've got that repeatability, is proven by having the $1 million run rate. And that's how we get into that third phase, which is scalability, right? And this is the reason why I've been focusing so much on people, process, and performance. Because if you're anything like many of the teams that we work with here, getting through those first couple phases, the startup phase and then the ramp up phase, is all well and good, right? If you don't get out of the startup phase, what ends up happening is obviously you die out. If you don't get out of the ramp up phase, you level out. This is what some people call never-ending startup mode, right? You can have $1 million business, a $2 million business, but if it's not growing and scaling, then you could have a 20-person company, a 30-person company. Yeah, you're selling product. Yeah, you have happy customers. But if you don't have a path to get to 10 million and then a path up to 100 million, you're not going to really grow and scale. And ultimately what that means is you're not going to be able to make the impact that you set out to make when you first started your company with your idea, with your vision, right? And so what we want to do is think about, well, what are the main obstacles that prevent companies from getting into and succeeding in that scale phase? What are the main obstacles that force a startup to level out instead of really grow up into making the impact that they want to make? And this is where these three areas, the people, the process, and performance, are so critical. And so specifically, we think about the people here. What we're really talking about, we talk about people, is the team, right? So once you've got the repeatable process around lead gen, pipeline conversions, account success, customer success, now you need the team around you, the SDRs, to run the sales lead generation playbook. You need the account executives to pull deals through the sales pipeline. You need the customer success team to make sure that your new customers are onboarded and they're trained and they're having the success that you're promising them with your product or service, right? And none of that can happen. You can't scale if you don't have the right team, the right people around you, right? The second thing that we need, we talked about process. So when I think about process, there's two parts to process. The first part is, now you've got the people, you've got the team, you've got your SDRs, you've got your AEs, you've got your customer success managers. There's one part of your process is figuring out, okay, here's my calendar every month, right? What am I doing as a manager every day to manage my team? What are we doing every week? How do we run my pipeline reviews with my team? How am I doing my daily stand-ups with my team? What kind of monthly reviews and monthly training am I doing to make sure that the team that I've hired, the people that I hired, are actually following the playbook, the process that we built back in ramp up phase? We got to $1 million in revenue. We got to $2 million in revenue because we were able to figure out how to lead gen, how to pull deals through, how to price our product, how to get our customers to be successful. If the team that you're hiring isn't able to run that process for you, and you're not able to manage them to those outcomes, then you're not going to be able to scale. So the process piece is both your process as a manager, and it's also their process to make sure that they're following that sales playbook that you spent literally years figuring out, right? So it's two sets of processes. It's your process as a manager and managing that process that your people should be following, right? So that's part two. Part three, and then this comes to performance, right? And this is where things get real when it comes to talking to your investors. They're looking at your KPIs every quarter, every month. They're looking at, how many leads are you bringing in? What are your conversion rates? How much revenue? What's your average revenue per customer? What's your average revenue per user? What's your cost of customer acquisition? What is your lead qualification rate? All of those numbers, all of those metrics. What is your retention rate or your churn? What is your upsell rate? part of the metrics, about performance. And the reason that those metrics matter, it's not just the top line numbers that the company needs to hit. It's not just the top line targets that the company needs to hit. The reason these metrics are important because it tells you everything about how you manage, and it tells you everything about the quotas and the comp plans and the territories and everything else you're setting up for the people in your team to help set them up for success. And so this is why I've been focusing so much on people and process and performance over the last couple of months, because a lot of the teams that we've been working with have done the hard, it's all hard work, let's face it. But think about the growth relative to effort here. And just get some of this out of here, clean it up. Okay. If we think about the effort that you put in when you're first starting, you're putting in a lot of effort and a lot of time in that startup phase, but you don't really get much growth for it. It's like you're putting 10 units of effort to get 1 unit of output, 10 input to get 1 output, right? Now, in the second phase, in the ramp up phase, it starts to equalize a little bit. Yeah, you're putting in that time and effort, but growth is a little bit more, right? It's almost a 1-to-1. Putting in a lot of hustle, putting in a lot of hard work, and the things are starting to pay off, right? To really get where you want to get to make the impact that you want to make, that's why scale is obviously so important. Because again, that same amount of time and effort is what's going to get you a huge amount of lift, a huge amount of impact, a huge amount of growth in your marketplace. And so this is why when teams don't figure out this piece of it, if they don't figure out how to get past this ramp up phase, this is why too many startups end up leveling out or eventually delaying the inevitable, which is dying out. It doesn't have to happen that way if you've got the right people, if you've got the right process, and if you're monitoring the right performance. And these are the systems that we're going to be going through and helping you to both see and implement with your company. So on the people side, for example, looking at your sales hiring system, we have a 12-step sales hiring system that walks you through how to define, find, hire, and onboard all of the new people that you're bringing into the organization. Right? On the on the process side of things, how are you running your daily, your weekly, and your monthly stand-ups and your meetings with your team? How are you building out your sales playbook so that you can keep your SDRs on the rails? Like, this is how we send emails. This is when we send emails. This is how we do calls. This is how we do our product demos. You've got to keep your team on the process, on the playbook that you spent years building. And we're going to talk about strategies to do that. And then finally, when we're looking at performance, looking at what are the metrics that matter most to your business and making sure that there's alignment between the people and those metrics so that you have the right incentive structures and you have the right people in place to hit those numbers. So these are just a couple of examples of the systems and the models that we're going to be going through. And most importantly, you can ask anybody that's ever come to my workshops. They're going to tell you that everything that we do is very practical, meaning that it's very, very easy to implement. It's very tactical, so it's specific. It's not high-level strategy stuff. These are systems that you can install very quickly and very efficiently into your company. And these are systems that have worked for my clients. They've worked for me. I've spent 20 years in enterprise sales, and most of that doing startup selling. I've worked with 3 different startups, all in the B2B space, and in all 3 cases took those startups all to their first millions in revenue. So everything that I teach is either stuff that I've done myself, or these are systems that we've installed successfully with clients. So that's why this is why we're focusing this event. This isn't a how to sell event. This is not this is how you plan your year event. This is an event. This workshop is all about people, process, and performance. Because for you and your startup, this year, if you're like our teams, a lot of our teams that I mentioned, if you're here, if you're in this point of your growth, you're just at $1 million or you're just past $1 million, and you know that the number this year is 3 million or 5 million or maybe even $10 million in revenue, the only thing that's going to prevent you from hitting those numbers, it isn't how do we get leads? It isn't how do we convert deals and do demos? You know how to do that stuff. You've got to find the people, you've got to manage the process, and you've got to nail the number. And that's what we're going to be focusing on. This is highly actionable, and it's all about execution mode. You've got the plan, you got the strategy, you know how to sell. We just got to execute like crazy this year in 2019 to hit your number so that you can make the impact that you want to make. So just wanted to share that. I know it's a longer video for some people to look at. I think it's critically important for us to understand exactly, first of all, what we're covering in this event and why we're covering it. So if you're in this stage, if you're in this area, if you're in this area of growth right now, where you're starting to ramp up your sales operations, you've got a sales leader in place. You maybe even have a couple of SDRs and you're hiring more. You've got a customer success person. You know, you're going to build that team. You're looking for your first couple of AEs to really start taking over some of the big accounts that you want to start targeting in your specific niche, in your industry, in your segments. Then this is the place for you, right? If you're back here and you're just trying to figure out your first product, this would be, yeah, great stuff to know in 3 years' time. The only people that we really want in this workshop are the CEOs and their sales leaders, so that when we teach and implement these systems, you can make them work right away, so that in 2019 you can execute on your plan and you can nail your number. So that's what I've got for you right now. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in learning more, just you can just either send me a direct message here, or you can, if you're watching this on LinkedIn, just type the word in the comment workshop, and we'll send you all the details. Okay. So that's it for now. Hope to see you there. If you got any questions as well, you can hop on the phone, have a quick chat, dive more into the details, and pick it up there. Okay. Thanks for watching. And this is Scott Sambucci signing off.